Now we're going to work on los adjetivos posesivos. Vamos a trabajar en los adjetivos posesivos. That means possessive adjectives. Now, what possessive adjectives are in English are my, your, his, hers, our, and their. It's easy in English. You just say those words and whatever comes after it, you're done. But in Spanish, just like everything else with agreement, we have to think about mostly just singular and plural. So in this regard, it's quite easy. Let me go over the box of possessive adjectives. But again, I'd like to reinforce that possessive adjectives must only agree in number with what is possessed. And that's the hard thing. So you really kind of have to think backwards on this, kind of like gustar. So we'll get to that. It's really not that difficult. There is, and I say with what is possessed or owned, and the only way when I say owned, it really just means like what is yours, really. That's what I'm trying to say. What is yours, right? What is yours? What is ours? What is his? What is hers? That's what I mean by possessive. So what I mean about what is possessed is it basically means what is yours, right? So I might say my backpack. I might say your teacher, right? So these possessive adjectives, although they have something to do with the subject, whether it's singular or plural has more to do with what you possess. And I will talk to you about that. There is one circumstance up here in nuestro, nuestra, which we'll talk about, that has to agree in gender also with what is possessed. And that it makes it a little bit complicated, but that's okay. We'll get there. It's the thing that throws people off the most. Okay, so possessive adjectives must only agree in number with what is possessed. Let's start with that, okay? Let's go through the possessive articles, possessive adjectives that don't need to agree in gender. So me and mis is mine. So if you have one thing, you'd say me. If you have more than one thing, you'd say mis, right? So we'll give you those examples in a second. Let's keep going. Tu, without an accent, means your, right? And tus means your plural, whatever you possess. So remember, the difference between tu with an accent means you, tu without an accent means your. Pretty easy. This gets a little confusing. Okay, su means yours, your. So you might use it, you might be talking to me and you might say, Señora Woodbury, su libro, your book, está en el suelo, is on the floor, right? It also means his, right? So somebody could say, Juan, el libro de su libro está en el piso. They could be referring to Juan's book is on the floor, or hers, okay? So these means your, his, hers, both of these do, right? But one is for one thing and one is for more than one thing. And that's all you have to think about. Now, the weird thing is when you come over to this area, which is usually for they, right? Or you plural, are they the same words, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're talking about one person's thing or more than one person's thing, you still use either su or sus, depending on what you own. Okay, so let's move over to these examples, and then we're going to get back to this one up here, nuestro, nuestra. All right, so here we go. Here our example is mi libro está en mi mochila, right? Which means my book is in my backpack. Remember, we use the verb estar for things where things are located. So this is one of the reasons we use it is for where things are located. So this is why I've used this in an example, because we're going to work more with this verb this chapter. Okay, versus mis libros están en mi mochila. So let's talk about what changed in this. Let's see, this was mi libro turned into mis libros, and está turned into están, right? So my book is in my backpack, okay? So pretty simple. You get it. Mi or mis. Not hard. Okay, let's go on. Tu libro, which means your book, está en mi mochila. Your book is in my backpack. Qué raro, ¿no? Or tus libros están en mi mochila. Does that seem pretty easy? I'm hoping so. Okay, so we did the mi or mis. If we were talking about Juan's book, we would say su libro está en mi mochila. If we were talking about Juan's books, we'd say sus libros están en mi mochila, right? All right, let's talk about some of these vocabulary words up here. We have abuela, abuelos, tío, hermanos, y hermana. Now, I am going to go over this step by step. I will point at the box of what I want to describe, and I want you in your head or out loud to say the word, to say the phrase that I'm looking for. So for example, if I pointed to this, let's just say, and I pointed to this, you would say mi abuela, right? If I pointed to this same spot and I point to this, you'd say mis abuelos, right? If I pointed to this box and I pointed to this, which is tío, uncle, you are going to say what? You say su tío, right? If I point to this here, that box, and I point to here, this one, hermanos, I don't know if you can see it. Let's get you over there. Hermanos, then you would say sus hermanos, right? And the sus, if we were saying this was Juan's brothers, right? We would be using this sus, Juan's brother, because it's one person. But if we were saying Juan and Maria's brothers, then we'd use this one over here. But what's the difference? There's no difference, right? So it doesn't really matter when it comes to that su and sus. The interesting thing is, let's say you wanted to say Juan and Maria's brother. Okay, so let's say we want to say Juan and Maria's brother. So it's Juan and Maria there, and their brother. Your brain wants to say Juan and Maria should be sus, right? Because that's the plural one. But remember that it has to do with what is possessed. And what's possessed in this sentence would be brother, right? It would be brother. So actually, if it was Juan and Maria's brother, you would still say su hermano. I know it's weird. That's the hardest thing with this whole concept. You would still say su hermano because it's only one thing that they possess together, okay? So I think what I will do is erase our sentences here so I can make sure that we write the correct answers. Let's see how this goes. All right, so you can check your work and check how your brain's thinking. All right, so I'm going to start. You can see both areas. I'm going to use abuela, and I am going to point to this box. Say it how you think it should be. That's right. This is what you should have said. Tu abuela. Very good. Okay, now I'm going to point to the here, hermanos, and I'm going to point to this box, and you would say what? I pointed to hermanos, so it would be sus hermanos, which would mean, in that case, it would be his or her or your formal brother, okay? I know, brothers, sorry, right. Sus, because it's brothers. All right, let's try another one. I'm going to point to here, and I'm going to point to here. So I pointed to here, and I pointed to here. that would be mis abuelos. All right, are you getting it? Okay, you ready to get it a little more complicated? I think you are. Now, we're going to move on to this here. And this is where it gets to be kind of a brain bender, I will say. And I think I'm going to erase this to give us some more space. All right, these words here, nuestro, nuestra, nuestros, or nuestras, means our, okay? Just like nosotros means we, nuestro means our. It's hard because it's very, very close. They both start with N. A lot of people end up writing nosotros instead of nuestros. It just happens. That's just an accident. So to start, let's take it another step. And we're going to write one way of saying possession, and then we're going to switch it to the possessive adjective. So how do we do that? If we were going to say Juan's grandmother, we would say la abuela de Juan. You can see that, la abuela de Juan, okay? The other way we could say la abuela de Juan is we would look in this box, right? Look in that box, because that's why we want to say his grandmother. So this is the other way we would do it. Su abuela, right? Now you probably need to know who they're talking about if you're going to write su abuela, but it is used all the time. All right, so now let's go ahead and do another example, but this time we're going to use this our, okay? Nuestro, nuestra, nuestros, o nuestras. Now I'm going to start with sister. And so a way I could do it, I could say la hermana, and this doesn't really happen very much, I should say, de nosotros. That's a little bit awkward, but that's what I'm trying to get at, is this is the we we're trying to use. Okay, so how would we say our sister? Well, sister is what we possess, right? So sister is the thing that belongs to us, and she's feminine, right? So we would go ahead and pick this, nuestra. So we'll write it, nuestra hermana. That's all we need to say. Even though this is a lot of people that own it, it still needs just to be singular, because it's about singular and feminine, because it's about hermana. What if we were trying to say los hermanos de nosotros? What we would do for that is we would say, okay, this is plural and it's masculine plural, so we better use nuestros, and that's how we do it. Nuestros hermanos. Okay, this all seems pretty simple in a way, because you just look at it. If you're saying our sister, it's nuestra hermana. If you're saying our brothers, you'd say nuestros hermanos. Pretty easy. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so hopefully you thought, that's pretty easy. It's weird, but it's pretty easy. What if we wanted to say our brother? So if it was like me and 3 other siblings, and we're talking about our brother, think about what you would say. I'm going to go ahead and write hermano down and leave a blank. So think in your head, if you were saying our brother, how you would say it using the option of one of those 4 terms. Okay, let's see. Did you get this? Did you say nuestro? That's it. Nuestro hermano, right? If you were going to say our grandparents, think about what you would say. You would say nuestros abuelos. So really, it's good timing, because this is all about agreement, right? And we're working with agreement. You just did the adjectives, right? The descriptive adjectives where you had to agree. The only thing that's tricky about this concept is you need to make sure you're not making it agree with the person who owns it. You're making the agreement, or the subject, you're making the agreement with what is possessed. Okay, hopefully this is simple. We'll be working on it using our family members, and that means and the verb star. So we're gonna talk about where our family members are, right? And then we're gonna describe our family members by saying what they're like. So first is where they are, and the next is what they're like. So let's talk about what you've learned. You've learned that your possessive adjectives agree in number only for these. So you don't even have to worry about it. If it's these, it's just number. You have to match the number and gender of what is possessed if you're up in this area. We'll work on this su or sus in these two sections, because this is where sometimes people get confused with who owns it, and whether it should be sus or su. That's another little tricky spot, but we'll keep working on it. I hope that was pretty clear. It's kind of complicated, but you'll get super used to it.